So it appears that Mr. Michael Carrick is being linked with the West Ham job, which, let's be honest, is completely understandable. Firstly, I mean, he's a former West Ham boy, isn't he? He's come through the academy, been a player for West Ham for quite a few years before obviously moving on. After we got relegated, he stayed for one season, didn't he? And then he moved on to Tottenham, which was obviously quite painful. But Carrick has always been highly regarded by West Ham. He's a great guy, and he's done obviously a very fantastic career, outstanding player for Manchester United. And then he's done his rounds as assistant manager. He was assistant manager at Manchester United for quite some time, and has now gone on to become a manager himself. And I've got to say, very impressive guy. And I love the brand of football. You can see why he's being linked with the West Ham job. You can see why fans kind of lean to look towards him a little bit as a future manager, maybe of West Ham, possibly the successor to David Moyes. Now, David Moyes, again, is under pressure. His job's under the spotlight once again because of that 5-0 drubbing at the hands of Fulham last weekend. So it's understandable that these things are going to keep coming up. But there's a fair bit going on at the moment. Now, it appears in terms of the David Moyes situation. I mean, basically what I want to do is I'm trying to give a bit of an update here in terms of what we've got from ex-WHU employee on the situation and for what we know. So it appears Michael Carrick's admired. I don't think there's any doubt denying that. I think that I don't see why he wouldn't be. He is a young up-and-coming manager, and you can see the way that he's got Middlesbrough playing and the way that he, especially last season, how he got them going, where he took them from to where he got them to was remarkable, really. There's no denying that if David Moyes is to depart at the end of the season, which is looking a likely scenario at this stage, then you'd imagine Michael Carrick will be heavily linked with the job. Not to say that he'll get it, but you would imagine he will be a name that will be bandied around as the club may talk to him. Who knows? I don't know when they do that sort of interviewing process of who they want to be the next manager. However, there is some news from X on the situation. And he's obviously provided an update here. So basically said that West Ham have moved now to deny any stories linking them with a move for former academy graduate Michael Carrick. Basically, they've reiterated their stance in that David Moyes has the backing of the club and will have. As far as I understand it, and far as I just do not see David Moyes losing his job at all this season. I really don't, unless there's a complete disaster. The only reason they would get rid of David Moyes, I imagine, season if we completely slumped, fall into the bottom half and heading towards a kind of relegation battle situation, then I imagine that then they'd probably pull the trigger. I cannot see them doing that. Because ultimately, we're not looking like a side that's going to be in any relegation battle this season, do we at all? I mean, we're already sitting on 24 points. We're not even at Christmas yet. I imagine we'll be 30-ish plus, possibly into the new year. So the chances of relegation for this club are slim to none. So we've seen David Moyes survive far worse. He survived far, far worse last season. And when we could have got relegated, there were periods. Don't get me wrong. I think there were periods. There were a couple of moments, wasn't there, last season where we generally thought bloody hell that we could go down, but they still stood by him. But I just cannot see any scenario where David Moyes loses his job this season. I just do not see it, as I say, unless it's a complete disaster. But I mean, what that X has said is that Carrick could well be, though, a long-term consideration, along with Will Steele. The club have said, though, they're going to monitor his progress over the coming years. So, and another player that's been, former player, it's been heavily linked alongside Carrick is Gary O'Neill of Wolves. That name's been coming about a little bit. And Tim Steidten apparently is going to be a key person in terms of if the manager gets replaced. Now, as far as we understand it, when it comes to David Moyes, is that the club are going to make a decision at the end of the season. I think it's always been regarded what was going to happen. My gut tells me that David Moyes, this is his last season. I think they do want to go in a different direction. But ultimately, there's a lot to consider, isn't there? There is a lot to consider. I know that there's a lot of frustration. I totally get it. I think that the style of football at times is really frustrating and can be difficult to watch. But ultimately, it's they're going to see it as a results as well, aren't they? There's two factors here. They're going to look at the playing style, but also going to look at results. And they're probably saying, well, the results haven't actually been that bad. We're actually in quite a strong position. We're doing all right in Europe. We're doing okay domestically in terms of the cups as well. We're in the quarterfinal of the Carabao. So it's a very difficult scenario at the moment. It's hard to see where exactly what's going to happen, but I think it's widely accepted. It's likely to be his last season. But my feeling is, and what when I was speaking to X about it, is basically West Ham fans, and all of us have just got, I think, sort of just accept it that David Moyes is going to be here for the rest of the season. I think that's just a given. I think that every time we lose a game, we're sort of expecting the club to pull the trigger. I just don't see it. I say unless it's absolutely catastrophic, if we lose, say, 10 on the spin and find ourselves, in the bottom, the 15th or 16th or something, then you could imagine they will have to add. But you look at West Ham, I just don't see that happening. I think we've got far too many good players, and we haven't been that horrendous. We haven't played great. I mean, as I say, it's not been the most exciting, brilliant brand of football where we've blown teams away, but ultimately we've been getting results. So I just don't see it. I really don't. But it's interesting. I mean, I like the fact that we're getting linked with these kind of managers. I like the fact Michael Carrick. I mean, Michael Carrick clearly is a talent, and I can only really admire everything he's done so far at Middlesbrough. And as I say, you can understand why he's being linked with the West Ham job. However, it appears from this update at the moment that David Moyes is here at least for this season.